Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Marche, the webinar director at Advice Chaser. Before we introduce our guests and get started, I do need to do a bit of legal housekeeping. Advice Chaser, the host of this webinar, is not a registered investment advisor. We cannot and do not give financial advice. Today's presentation is for educational purposes only and cannot be considered advice for any person's individual situation. Advice Chaser regularly hosts informative webinars such as this one, featuring a variety of knowledgeable professionals, many of whom are licensed advisors. Any opinions, ideas, jokes, or principles expressed by presenters are their own, and however true, funny, or interesting, are not endorsed by Advice Chaser. Please do not act on the information you hear today without consulting a qualified financial professional. We are thrilled to bring you today's educational presentation. Attendees are muted, but we encourage you to ask questions using the chat box. The presenters will answer those queries during or after the webinar today as appropriate, if we can get to them all. If you ask a question in the chat box, go ahead and leave your phone number as well. If we can't get to your question during this event, we'll make sure someone reaches out to you after today's event. And we want this experience to be as educational as possible, so please don't hesitate to ask for clarification or expansion of the material. I'd love to introduce you to today's moderator. Lars Larson is the president of Heritage Financial North and holds the Chartered Financial Consultant designation. As a financial planner and I'm sorry, I lost my place there, and I want to show you our moderator's picture while I'm talking about him. As a financial planner, and investment advisor, and a fiduciary, Lars provides objective advice, working solely for his clients. Since 2003, Lars's approach to planning comes from a holistic perspective, which includes wealth management, retirement, and tax planning, portfolio management, as well as Social Security planning. Outside of the office, Lars enjoys hiking with the family, running, and he has spent many years practicing Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, where he holds a black belt. Lars, I'm going to go ahead and let you say a few words to greet our audience.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you, Marcia. I'm excited to be on this webinar today. We have some great content. In fact, I am looking forward to hearing from our presenters here. I'll be listening out for questions you may have. If we can, we might interrupt the speakers for a little bit and ask them a question. So I grew up in Denmark, which is a really highly taxed country with a very strong social safety net. So when I grew up, I didn't think much about Social Security, retirement, all that kind of stuff. In fact, when I came to the United States and landed at the beaches in Southern California in my early 20s, I really didn't, you're invincible. I didn't think about those kind of things. And fast forward a decade, all of a sudden I found myself in the .com era, and I had put everything I had into a startup and ended up as so many as a casualty. And for the first time in my life, I started asking some new questions that you might be asking yourself too. Well, can I ever retire? And when could I? And what does that look like? And just by pure luck or fate or whatever it was, I got into the financial industry. I got recruited, and I realized how much I didn't know about money and taxes and investing and financial planning strategies, and quite frankly, also how important things like Social Security was. And for the last 18 years, I've helped hundreds of people and families meet their retirement needs and goals and get the retirement they really dreamt of. And usually when I build a financial plan, one of the first important pieces is Social Security. And you might be wondering right now, do I have enough and when can I retire? Well, Social Security fits into that. Many of you are thinking right now, will my money last or will I outlive my money? Well, again, Social Security does fit into that. And of course, everyone's thinking, if something should happen to me, will I or my family be okay? And interestingly enough, Social Security also fits into that piece. So whenever we build a financial plan, Social Security is a very important foundation for how we plan everything else with your IRAs, your 401ks, and other investment strategies and income strategies. So I'm really excited about this conversation today. So I'm going to pass it back to you, Marche, and I look forward to participating in all this.
Thank you. Thank you, Lars. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our folks from Premier Social Security Consulting. Mark Kiner is the president, and they specialize in helping individuals and couples understand and maximize their lifetime Social Security benefits. The business also provides Social Security education and training for professional advisors looking to better serve their own clients and educating them about Social Security. Mark obtained his Bachelor's of Science degree in Accounting and Finance and a Master's degree from the University of Cincinnati. He's a CPA and has 35 years experience in public accounting. Jim Blair is a former Social Security administrator and is the lead consultant at Premier Social Security Consulting. Jim has over 35 years experience in helping individuals manage their Social Security benefits and taking claims for retirement, survivors, disability, and health insurance. Most notably, he has also served as an operations supervisor and a district manager for the Piqua, Ohio Social Security Office. And I'd like to also welcome Gail Jacobs, who's also with Premier Social Security Consulting, and she is the marketing director. We have the whole team here together, and we're really excited to have you present. Mark, I'm going to stop my sharing, and you can go ahead and take over here. Oh, Mark, you're on mute. Let's see.
I can't do two things at one time. Either I unmute myself or I share my screen. Anyway, now that I unmuted myself, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I believe this is the right PowerPoint. Okay. Marche, thanks for having us on today. I appreciate it. My name is Mark Kiner, and our company is Premier Social Security Consulting. We are based in Cincinnati, Ohio. Like Marche said, I am a CPA, and I started my accounting practice back in 2012, so I can concentrate 100% of my time in the Social Security space. My partner, Jim Blair, is the guy who looks kind of relaxed, sitting back, wearing a nice blue shirt. Jim, talk about what you've done with the Social Security Administration, please.
Sure. As Mark mentioned, I did work there, and Marche mentioned too, I worked there for 35 years and did a number of jobs. Started off as a service representative. Now that's that smiling face you see when you walk in the front door, when you can walk in the front door. But they generally help people who are already have applied for benefits they're receiving. Maybe they're missing a check, have problems with their address, changing bank information, all sorts of different reasons why they would be contacting Social Security. Moved into the claims taking part of it, took claims for retirement survivors, disability and health insurance for 10 years, moved into the management end, and I did spend the last 9 years as a district manager of the Piqua, Ohio office. Nice little rural community, with the point really being that regardless of where you're at, there is a Social Security office fairly close. I know depending on where you live, that could be fairly close, could be a relative term. But generally speaking, it is the most accessible government office out there. So should you need the Social Security office, it's there. Plus they have their 800 number, but it is available to folks because it affects almost everybody.
Thank you, Jim. Gail, please talk about your background and also your bubbly personality, because you are our marketing director.
Okay, so I am not in the financial field. I was always supervising catering staff for large events, weddings, bar mitzvahs, things like that. And through the pandemic, that whole system was eliminated where I worked. And so I knew Mark, and he said, "You want to try marketing?" I said, "I can do that." So I have been doing marketing for Mark and Jim for almost a year, and just trying to spread the Social Security love.
We have 5,600 LinkedIn connections, thanks to Gail. So this is our third Advice Chaser webinar on Social Security. The first two, we talked about basics, we talked about who's eligible, how we calculate benefits. And Advice Chaser does have a YouTube channel. If you'd like to listen to those and watch those webinars, you can go to the Advice Chaser YouTube channel. Am I right, Marche?
That's correct. Just type in
Perfect.
Advice Chaser in YouTube.
Thank you very much. So this webinar, we're not going to go over the basics. We're not going to discuss who's eligible. We're not really even going to discuss spousal benefits because we've done that already. We want to talk about advanced planning strategies and case studies, which all relate to what we call situational Social Security. We know that everyone out there, I believe, Gail, there are 76 million baby boomers, right?
Correct. Mhm.
Each and every one of those baby boomers have a unique and different Social Security situation. So we've got 13 case studies that we hope we do have enough time to go over in today's webinar. But every one of our clients is in a different situation. Every one of Laura's clients is in a different situation. So we really do emphasize situational Social Security when we give a presentation on the topic. There you go. So let's talk about situational Social Security. Jim, why don't you handle the first 5? I'll handle the next 4. And then after this, we'll kind of get into case studies in about 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, and what we want you to remember is you need to be proactive in looking at your Social Security benefits. It's not just, hey, I'm 62, it's time for me to apply for benefits. You're going to look at your particular situation. And as Mark mentioned, everybody's is a little different. We have single folks. Their options are kind of limited. Do they file at 62, full retirement age, maybe wait till age 70? Certainly going to file somewhere in that 8-year window. They will apply for those benefits. But they're pretty much looking out for themselves. So they're going to be looking at their own particular situation. That doesn't mean there aren't some of the things we're going to talk about today that affect them as well. Married folks have different options. Do you both file at 62? Do you both wait till 70? Any combination anywhere in between? How important are spousal benefits, survivor benefits, those types of things? So what we want to look at with married folks, what are both of your work histories? What are the differences in your ages? Maybe there's no difference. Maybe there's many years difference. All of those are going to factor into when you want to think about taking your Social Security benefit. Now, in a lot of states, we have public employees, and a lot of public employees pay into their own pension plan. We're in Ohio, and in Ohio, most of our public employees, our state teachers, school employees, public employees, police, firemen, they pay into their own pension plan. They opted out of Social Security. You're probably thinking, I didn't know I could opt out of Social Security. Well, they allowed the states to do that. And maybe some folks who work for the federal government who've been employed for a long time, they're affected by the pension that they receive from that non-covered work where they didn't pay Social Security tax on their wages. If they're drawing on their own work record, it changes how their benefit is computed. If they're filing as a spouse or a surviving spouse, those benefits are affected. And then we have what's called a restricted application. And for folks who are a little bit older, you had to meet a specific birth date, January 1st of 1954 or earlier. If you meet that and you haven't applied for Social Security yet, you might be eligible or want to take advantage of something called the restricted application. And we'll go into more detail about that when we go through our case studies. And then there's children's benefits. So you may have a minor child, or folks could have a disabled child that could be eligible for benefits off their work record. So all sorts of different things for folks to take into consideration.
You might be able to draw off of an ex-spouse. You can draw off ex-spouses that are alive, or if they've deceased, if they are deceased, as long as you're married to them for at least 10 continuous years. And if you have more than one ex-spouse that you were married to for 10 years each, then you would have some options as to which ex you might want to draw off of. You might be able to draw as a surviving spouse. So if you might have one or more deceased current spouses, or one or more deceased ex-spouses that you would have the opportunity to draw off of. And there's a certain provision which does not apply to ex-spouses. No, not ex-spouses, surviving spouses. We call that deemed filing. So keep that in your Social Security tool chest. Jim will talk about that later when he talks about Amanda. If you're over full retirement age, you have an opportunity to receive a lump sum check of 6 months worth of benefits. So if you're age 68, you can collect a lump sum check for the past 6 months. And that's a very valuable strategy. So if you're over full retirement age, you might want to consider going back 6 months. And your full retirement age, if you were born, Gail, this is for you. If you were
Ooh,
born in
good.
1959, that means you're turning 62 this year.
That's me.
What's your full retirement age?
66 and 10 months.
If your clients or if you guys and ladies are turning 62 next year, that means you're born in 1960 and your full retirement age would be age 67. I was born in 1956. My full retirement age is 66 and 4 months, which equates to June of 2022. And I was looking in the Cincinnati obituaries a couple of days ago because I just like to see the ages that people pass away, and also want to see who's passing away. That sounds like kind of morbid, I'm sure. Anyway, I saw a couple of folks passing away at the age of 100. But Gail, that doesn't have anything on your friend Ethel, does it?
Yeah, Ethel is what you see up there. She's 106. She will be 107 in November. And she's a very good friend of mine. Her daughter-in-law is my best friend. And Ethel, Mark and I figured out, has been collecting Social Security for probably about 40 years. Her husband passed when he was 75, I think back in 1990. So she's still going strong.
So keep in mind one of the factors is when you want to begin your benefits, one factor is longevity. Jim, what's the average death age nowadays?
Well, for a male in his 60s, according to the Social Security Administration, the average survival rate is about age 84 in 6 months, or around 84 anyway. For a female in her 60s, it's around age 87. They tell us that half of those folks are going to live to their upper 80s, early 90s. A quarter of those folks will live to be 95 or older. They don't tell us which one of us those are. We got to figure that out on our own, make our best guess, but people are definitely living longer.
Mark, can I throw in a quick question here that came from one of the audience here? It says, if my wife, and it's sort of on the same topic, if my wife receives a survivor's benefit based on my earnings, will she receive a larger benefit if I delay my benefit until I'm 70 years instead of me taking my benefit several years earlier?
Jim?
The easy answer is yes. And that's the good news, I suppose. But the survivor benefit is based on what the deceased was receiving or eligible to receive at the time they passed away. So if you wait until age 70, that's going to increase the survivor benefit. If somebody takes their benefit at 62, that's going to decrease the survivor benefit. So that's why you definitely want to consider that when you're thinking about, when do I take my benefit? Is my spouse potentially going to step into my shoes? And if so, what is me taking my benefit going to do, and how important those are in my plan?
So Gail, I want to go back a slide.
Mhm.
What does situational Social Security mean to you?
Oh, so for me, it actually, just looking at the three of us that are here, and maybe the five, I'm not really sure. I know Lars is married, but it just means that each one of your clients might be in a totally different situation. I'm divorced, was married for 25 years, and Mark is a widower, and Jim has been married to his high school sweetheart for 51 years. So 3 different people, 3 totally different stories.
Jim, you've been married to Pat for 51 years. How many discussions have you had about Social Security education with her?
So many.
Well, we haven't had any serious discussions, but she hears about Social Security all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes she gets tired of hearing about it, but she's a good sport and hangs right in there.
Hey, Jim, talk about some of the factors folks need to consider in determining when they want to begin benefits.
Sure. When you're thinking about starting benefits, one area you definitely want to look at, what's your work level? Are you still working? If you are under your full retirement age and you want to file for Social Security retirement benefits, or really any kind of benefits, you are subject to what's called the earnings test. And if you earn over a certain amount, Social Security is going to start withholding your benefits. In 2021, that is $18,920. If you earn over that, they'll hold back $1 of your Social Security benefits for every $2 you go over. If you have a high earnings, you might not be eligible for anything, so it wouldn't make sense to apply. Even if you're past full retirement age, you still want to look at your work level. Do you need the Social Security? I have income from my wages. And what's that going to do to me tax-wise? Because Social Security benefits, if you earn enough, can be subject to federal income tax. And depending on the state you live in, it could be subject to some state tax. There's about 13 states that actually tax your Social Security benefit. Now, the cost of waiting, we refer to the break-even point, meaning if I take benefits at 62 or I wait until my full retirement age, when do I reach that point where I've received the same amount of money? Taking it at 62, I get less, but I get it sooner versus waiting until my full retirement age. That could be anywhere from 4 really to 5 years difference. And it's about a 12-year break-even point. So about age 78 to 79, you've received the same amount of money from Social Security, whether you started at 62 or you started at your full retirement age. How long are you going to live? We talked about that a little bit, but if you're one of those folks that's going to live to be 95 or older and you took benefits at 62, you're definitely losing some money there. We also talked a little bit about the effect on widows' benefits. Just remember that if you're the higher earner and your spouse is going to step into your shoes upon your passing, then what you do has a direct effect on those widows' benefits. Now, certainly, if people need the money, they're going to take the money. I always like to tell people the worst decision you can make isn't terrible. It's just not the best decision for you financially and what you're looking at. But still, it's not terrible. So for folks who, if you need the money to get by on, you're going to file for Social Security once you reach age 62 or whenever that hits. A lot of people tell me as well, I'd like to retire at 62, but I get my health insurance through my work. So I'm going to have to work till I'm 65 when Medicare kicks in. Or maybe I have to work till my spouse is 65 because my spouse gets their medical insurance through my employment. So your healthcare needs are going to factor into that. Your lifespan, yeah, we don't know, but you look at your health, your family history, make your best guess on that and take that into consideration as well. Now, there's another thing about healthcare that's a little tricky, and that is they can't, if Medicare premiums go up, they can't lower your Social Security benefit just to pay an increase in Medicare premiums. They call it the hold harmless rule. So this means that if you don't get a cost of living increase and Medicare premiums go up, you still pay the lower premium amount. This happened in 2016, was the last time that happened. We had no cost of living increase. Medicare went up about roughly about $23. And the people that were receiving a Social Security check that also had Medicare, they stayed at the lower amount. And it took several years of cost of living increases before they actually caught up and started paying the full Medicare premium. Now, it doesn't mean your Medicare coverage is less. You still get the same coverage, but you're paying a little bit less than a monthly premium. So that could be something to take into consideration. What are the differences in you and your spouse's age? If you're close in age, if you're both high earners, a lot of the software packages out there will say you both should wait till age 70, or one of you wait till age 70 and the other file it to your full retirement age. Whereas if you have about 5 years or more difference in your ages, a lot of times it's going to tell the younger person, go ahead and take your benefit at 62, because odds are you will receive that survivor benefit before you reach your break-even point or shortly thereafter. So that's the kind of thing you don't want to think about. Nobody wants to really have that on their mind, but it's something that you do need to take into consideration, because when I took claims from people, a lot of times what you would see is while the couple were both still living, things were fine. One person would pass away, you're losing some benefits. That doesn't mean your expenses get cut in half. And a lot of times people would say to me, that's not enough money. And unfortunately, at that point, it's too late. It's already baked in. So you want to think about that in advance as well. Now, what we like folks to also do is to think about coordinating your spousal benefits. Look at Social Security not as it's my benefit and my spouse's Social Security is her benefit. Technically it is, but we need to look at it as a household income. How is that going to work best for both of us? And that might mean that a wife takes her benefits at 62 and a husband waits till age 70. By the wife taking it earlier, she gets less, but it does bring money into the household, could allow the husband to wait. Then if she survives him, she would draw the higher benefit. So coordinating those benefits are real important. And all of this is what we call situational Social Security.
Hey, Jim,
Hey, Jim,
talk about the,
Can I throw in a quick question before you move on there? Jim, we had a question and you touched on it briefly. If someone takes a benefit early and it says that if you start taking benefit at 62 and full retirement is 67, will it impact taxes if you still work?
Well, if as a single person, you have income, including half of your Social Security benefit of over $25,000, then half of your Social Security is subject to federal income tax. If your income ends up being over $34,000, then 85% of your benefit is subject to federal income tax. For a married couple, those points are 32,000. They become taxable, and then at 44,000, you hit that 85% level. So it depends on what your other income is, and you would look at your Social Security, but a lot of, it doesn't take much to get up to those numbers. So odds are it's going to be subject to a little bit of tax.
okay. We want to talk about a very valuable strategy that you need to be aware of. The 2015 Bipartisan Budget Act is impacting a couple strategies. This one is still available to about 40% of our clients. The restricted application allows you to collect a benefit off your spouse, while at the same time your benefit grows, earning delayed retirement credits. Let's say that's my situation. Let's say I can get $2,000 off my work record. Let's also assume I can receive $1,000 off my wife as a spouse. At my full retirement age, I could file a restricted application, claim a spousal benefit off of her work record, while at the same time my benefits are growing. And at age 70, now my benefits have grown from $2,000 up to $2,640. A nice increase. It's like having a cake and eating it too. My wife and I have collected $48,000 in spousal benefits, and I'm also increasing my benefit by 32%. Now, there's a limit though. Gail, there's a magic birth date. What's that magic birth date?
January 1st, 1954.
So if you were born by that date, you can file a restricted application, claim a benefit off your spouse, while at the same time your benefits are growing, earning those delayed retirement credits. So think in the back of your mind when you were born. If you're born by that magic date of January 1st of 1954, then you need to consider utilizing that restricted application. And I believe in a couple of case studies we're going to look at shortly, the restricted application will be available to some of those individuals. We put together 4 three-legged stool showing some of the strategies available to various types of people. This one has to do with married couples. So for a married couple, leg number 1, we have one spouse waiting to age 70. It could be both, but generally it's going to be the husband. Jim, on a percentage basis, how many folks wait to, no. Yes, wait to age 70 to collect their benefits.
Last I saw, it's not real high. It's around 4%.
All right, so it's not high, but yeah, but like Jim said, about 4%. Leg number 1 leads us right into leg number 3, where we want to maximize surviving spouse benefits. If the husband does wait to age 70, assuming he was the higher earner, assuming he's going to pass away earlier, then now we're maximizing surviving spouse benefits. And that's leg number 3. Leg number 2 is, how do you coordinate spousal benefits? And how do you fit situational Social Security into your plan? Jim?
As I mentioned before, single folks, they're a little limited on their options, but they still have options they want to take into consideration. Do they file at 62? That's the earliest you can take your Social Security. Do they wait till age 70? No reason to wait past age 70. You don't earn any more of an increase by waiting. So unless you like giving money away to the federal government, waiting past age 70 makes no sense. So somewhere in that 8-year window, folks are going to decide when to start Social Security. Single folks need to keep in mind that if they are under their full retirement age, they are subject to the earnings test, meaning if you earn over that $18,960, it can affect your benefit. The year you reach full retirement age, the amount you're allowed to earn goes up to $50,520, and then they withhold $1 for every 3 that you exceed there. But the good news is, the month you reach full retirement age, this earnings test goes away. So regardless of how much your earnings are at full retirement age, you can start drawing your Social Security benefit. However, when you pass away, benefits stop. There's nobody that you're preparing a survivor benefit for. It's just you. You're a single individual. So when you pass away, benefits will end. So is waiting till 70 a good idea? Well, if everybody in your family lives to their upper 90s, maybe 70 doesn't sound so bad. But if nobody in your family lives past age 72, doesn't make much sense to wait till age 70. So you're looking at different situations, but keeping it in the back of your mind that once you're gone, your benefits are as well.
Once you're gone, you're gone.
Yeah, you're gone.
Divorce folks, you can collect off your ex if your ex is still alive or the ex is deceased. You just have to be married to your ex-spouse for at least 10 years. Now, in order to collect off of your ex-spouse and you've been divorced for less than 2 years, your ex-spouse must be receiving either a retirement or a disability benefit. If you've been divorced for 2 years or longer, your ex-spouse does not need to be collecting a Social Security benefit. And if you were born by 1/1/54, you can file a restricted application, claim a benefit off your ex-spouse while your own benefits are growing, earning those delayed retirement credits. And if you have more than one ex-spouse, you can claim off of ex-spouse A when you turn age 62. And then 2 years later, ex-spouse B turns age 62, your benefit off of ex-spouse B would be higher. You can switch. And if you're lucky enough to have a third ex-spouse, 2 years later, the third ex-spouse turns 62, you can claim off of that third ex-spouse. So you could have 3 ex-spouses drawing off your work record. You could have a current spouse drawing off your work record. And if you have any kids out there, they could be drawing off of your work record too. At this point, when we teach our 8-hour class, the advisors say, well, that's why Social Security is going broke. And I guess they call that the Johnny Carson phenomenon. Jim, I'm going to pass by surviving spouses. We only have an hour today. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So anyway, we're going to go. We have 13 case. These are nice people. I didn't think they were in the slide we sent to you, Marche. Anyway, we've got 13 case studies. We'll go over maybe half. We'll see how far we get. But these are actual clients of ours, and so many different situations. Some of our one of the case studies is an ex-spouse looking to collect off of her ex-spouse. Another one, we have an ex-spouse that can collect off of 2 deceased ex-spouses. We have case studies whereby the restricted application is still in play. The wife is older than the husband. The wife has a greater income than the husband. And we even have a case study, number 8, whereby there's something missing in that case study. And if we get to it, that's great. If not, I'll let you know that the initials of what's missing is RA. Okay. Jim, why don't you do the first one? Harold and Belinda, please.
All right, so we have Harold. He was born in 1957. Belinda, though, was born in 1953, so she's older than Harold. But more importantly, she meets that magic date of January 1st of 1954 or earlier. So when we look at this right away, we know we're going to think about the restricted application. Now you'll see there on the left, it shows many things. It shows Harold's benefit at his full retirement age. For him, that's 66 and 6 months. His benefit's $2,331. Belinda also has worked under Social Security. Her full retirement age benefit is $1,738. And while she is expected to live to a higher age than Harold, we don't know if that's going to happen, or with there being about 5 years or about 4 years difference in their ages, there's about maybe 2.5 to 3 years difference in their survival rates. So maybe Belinda will receive a survivor benefit, maybe she won't, but it's still something that we have to take into consideration. So let's look at a couple of the options that they have available to them. Now they have more than two. They're normally people have around, a married couple anyway, around 9 options or so. But in this case, we're just looking at the top two. And the first thing we're going to look at is having Belinda filing for benefits. She waits till age 70. And that's going to get her the highest amount she can get on her own work record. That's going to be how much? $2,294. Also, Harold waits till age 70. His benefit is going to increase to $2,983. And then whoever survives who, whether Belinda survives Harold or maybe Harold survives her, his benefit is amount is what the surviving spouse is going to receive, the $2,983. The reason that we're not talking about a restricted application here, that's because by the time Harold files for benefits, Belinda's already age 70. Now, option 2, Belinda's going to file for benefits. I can't see the whole thing because of our pictures. Let me see if I can.
So that's in the way, Jim?
Yeah.
I didn't know
Oh,
that.
there, I got it moved. We're good. Okay.
Okay.
So
Oh,
Belinda's going to file at age 67 and 3 months. She's going to file on her own work record, and Harold's still going to wait until age 70. The reason we had 67 and 3 months, when she talked to us, that's what allowed us to take her back. Now, what you don't see in here is the restricted application. And what would be required to happen is that for Belinda to file for spousal benefits, she would have to wait for Harold to file. So he'd have to file, say, at age 62. And if he did, then his 2331 is going to be reduced. In his case, about 27, 28%. And she could draw half of the 2331. And then at age 70, she can switch to her own. And then she'll get the higher benefit, the 2294. The reason it wasn't one of the top ones, it's because of the difference in their ages, she was pretty close to age 70 before he reached age 62. And so she didn't really draw it for that long of a period of time. But they do have options. You can see that they live to those ages. Option 1 gets them about $980,000 just in Social Security benefits versus $965,000 for option 2. So if they live to those ages, both of them waiting till 70 will get them the most amount of money from Social Security. Is that what's best for them? Well, maybe, maybe not. A lot of times you don't want to wait that long before you start your benefits.
We have Jerry and Lynn. So I want to point some stuff out here. On the left-hand side, you see their names, you see their birth dates. You also see their full retirement age benefit. In Jerry's case, it's $3,017, and his full retirement age is 66 and 4 months. Jerry was born the same year as I, 1956. You also see his expected death age, which is 84 years and 5 months. Lynn was born in 54. whenever I talk to somebody and I always ask how old are you, or when they were born. If they tell me 1954, the next question I would ask is what day. It's possible they were born on January 1st and can file that restricted application, but you can see she was born in November. You can also see that she doesn't have any benefits coming to her off her work record because she doesn't have her 40 credits, and her full retirement age is 66. So he is 2 years younger. Jerry is 2 years younger than Lynn. So what's going to go on here is Lynn is not eligible for spousal benefit until Jerry begins his benefits. If he claims at 66 and 4 months his full retirement age, that's when Lynn can begin a spousal benefit. If he waits to age 70, now that's going to be 3 years and 8 months later, Lynn will have to wait 3 years and 8 months more before she can file for a spousal benefit. So sometimes the timing of a spousal benefit is based on when the higher income earner will draw. And so let's look at their options here. Option number one brings in $996,000 over 2 lifetimes. Jim and I, we've seen options whereby they could be drawing $1.25 million up to $1.5 million in Social Security benefits over 2 lifetimes. So in option number one, we're going to have a Jerry file for his benefits at 64 and 1 month in January 2021. And right away, what does Lynn do? She files for a spousal benefit, and now she collects half of his full retirement age benefit. So he's going to collect at 64 and 1 month. She's going to begin the spousal benefit immediately at that point, which will be January 2021. And then by him claiming at 64 and 1 month, we're not going to maximize the surviving spouse benefit, are we? Because we're only going to receive $2,564. That's the surviving spouse benefit. Option number one comes in a pretty close $12,000 less than option 2 versus option 1. And in option number 1, Jerry's going to wait until his full retirement age, 66 and 4 months. But because he does that, now Lynn needs to wait the 2 years and 3 months before she collects a spousal benefit. So sometimes the husband, in this case, Jerry, files for benefits earlier, so a spousal benefit is payable earlier. Or the other option is that he waits as late as age 70. But what happens then? In that case, the spousal benefit to the wife, in this case, Lynn, is going to be delayed 2 years and 3 months. So I kind of like option number 1, brings in money a little quicker and doesn't force them to wait until April of 2023. But what could jeopardize option number 1? That earnings test. They're going to make over $19,000 or so. Then option number 1 may not be viable. Jim?
Well, we have Bruce and Debbie. They were both born in 1959, so we know their full retirement age is 66 and 10 months. Actually, Debbie was born about 10 months before Bruce. Bruce has a work history. His full retirement age benefit is $2,302. Debbie doesn't have enough work under Social Security covered employment for her to be eligible for a benefit. She's kind of at the mercy of Bruce as to when she begins her benefits, because she cannot take a spousal benefit until he starts to receive his retirement benefit. So let's look at the options that they have available to them. And option 1, Bruce files right away at his full retirement age. He's going to file and receive the full $2,302 at age 66 and 10 months. That means, though, Debbie still has to wait. She's going to be age 67 and 8 months when she starts her benefit. As a spouse, she's eligible for 50% of Bruce's full retirement age benefit. So we're going to take that 2302, divide it in half, and that's 1151. Thing is, unlike retirement benefits, if you are eligible for retirement benefits and you wait till 67 and 8 months, you've earned delayed retirement credits. For spousal benefits, you've earned nothing. She still just receives 100% of his full retirement age benefit. So she'll receive the 1151. If she survives him, she'll get the full 2302. Now, if Bruce decides, hey, I think I want to wait till I'm 70. I want the higher benefit. And, one reason might be because I want to increase the survivor benefit payable to my wife. So he waits to age 70. Well, now he's waiting till November of 2029. His benefits start. And the good news is his benefit is increased. And in his situation, it's about 25.3% increase. So instead of getting 2302, he gets 2885. Well, increasing your own benefit for delayed retirement credits doesn't help with the spousal benefit. Debbie's still only going to get half of what Bruce would have received at his full retirement age. So she still just gets half of the 2302. In both scenarios, her benefit's the same, 1151. She gains nothing by waiting, but she has to wait under option 2 because she has to wait for Bruce to apply. Now, granted, she does get a higher survivor benefit, but from that period of time where Bruce was 66 and 10 months up to age 70, Debbie didn't receive anything and didn't receive an increase in the benefit for that. So option 1 does get them money over their lifetime of $786,000 versus option 2, $769,000. Option 1 does get them money sooner. It is a little bit less for the survivor benefit, but it still may be something that they want to take into consideration.
And Jim, you said earlier about 4% of folks wait to age 70. What percentage of people take at age 62?
For men, it's about 27%. Females, I think it was around 30%. I can't remember the exact amount. It's still pretty low. And will it grow? It's hard to say. It's not that people don't want to file early. It's just that they can. As one guy told me, I'm a spender, not a saver. So I have to work the rest of my life. Now, a lot of people are the exact opposite, and they can retire earlier, but they also don't want to start dipping into their savings at age 62 versus, say, full retirement age.
A very common strategy to piggyback on what Jim just said a few minutes ago about people claiming 62 is if you have a husband and wife where the wife is also eligible for her own Social Security benefits, a common strategy is that she might begin hers at age 62. So she'll take a bit of a haircut up to somewhere between 25 and 30%. But that might allow the husband to wait until full retirement age or age 70 to collect his benefits. And if he was born by 1/1 of 54, he could file that restricted application, claim off her work record while he's getting those delayed retirement credits. So sometimes, folks, it does make sense for wives to begin their own benefits earlier because they would have the opportunity to for the husband to begin his benefits maybe at full retirement age or age 70. If she begins later, maybe that opportunity for him to wait until age 70 just does not apply. Jim, we did a case study a couple of years ago. It's not on the screen here. We had Andrew and Leanne. Do you remember them?
Yeah, yes, they were older.
No, they weren't older. But it'll come to you as I go over what the situation was. He was 24 years older than her. Maybe that's what you were talking about. And they had a couple of young kids. Remember that one?
Oh, okay. I was thinking of somebody else, but yeah.
Okay. And so what, in that case, Jim, where the husband is 24 years older, in that case, what was the one of the major factors that you talked to them about?
Well, because they had young children, they were going to be eligible for benefits whenever either parent files for benefits, obviously the older parent. When he filed for retirement, the children are going to be eligible. Does he file at 62 so they can get benefits? What we want to look at, how long will the children receive their benefits? If it's a year, maybe 2, he might not want to file early because by filing at 62, he's taking a reduction that would affect his wife's survivor benefit, who is likely to receive that for a very long period of time.
Really long period of time.
Yeah, so we're going to look at all of that. Is it worth for going ahead and filing so the kids get some benefits? Or is it going to be better off waiting so that down the road, the surviving spouse will get the higher benefit? We want to look at all that and let them
So out of
know
everything,
what those options are before they make their decision.
so Jim, of everything you just talked about in my mind, is that it's more important for Andrew to wait till age 70 because Leanne is going to receive a surviving spouse benefit for about maybe 30 years. And so if he takes it 62 just to allow a child's benefit at that point, Leanne, and we're not going to be able to maximize the surviving spouse benefit for Leanne, and she's going to receive that benefit for so many years. Now, it's
Of course, it
very
depends.
true. 24-year age difference is probably not very common, is it, Jim?
Not too common, but it also depends on her work history. If she's a real high earner, then it may be better for him to file at 62. So everybody, there's situational Social Security right there. Everybody's situation is different.
Mark, I know that we're running short on time and we want to get to some questions. Maybe we can cover just a single person and then Kathy, that's a good one, and then go to questions.
Hey, Kathy, talk about, I mean, not Kathy, Jim, you're still Jim, right?
It's still Jim, yes.
Jim, Kathy is divorced and she has an opportunity to receive her benefit versus Jose. So talk about Kathy's our client. Talk about Kathy's options, please.
Yeah, her options would be to either file for her own Social Security benefit and also receive a spousal benefit boost, or is she going to file that restricted application and then file for just her own benefit at age 70? And what we end up looking at is she draws the same amount of money from, say, full retirement age to age 70, regardless of the option she goes with. Does she file on her own at full retirement age, get $1,002 and end up getting an additional amount from Jose to bring her up to half of his, or $1,135? Or does she file a restricted application and get $1,135? Why does that make a difference? It makes a difference because when she reaches age 70, if she files on her own plus the additional amount from Jose at age 70, she stays at $1,135. But if she files a restricted application on Jose at age 70, she switches to her own, and her $1,002 is increased to $1,300 and some dollars. So she's actually going to get a raise at age 70. She'll be ahead of the game by many dollars. Let's see, it's about $32,000 over her lifetime by doing the restricted application and then switching to her own. What will she get at age 70? She'll get $1,322 instead of $1,135. So this one was a no-brainer for her. She did the restricted application, even though she wasn't married to Jose. They were married long enough. They met the 10-year requirement, and because they had been divorced for more than 2 years, he didn't have to file for benefits. She could file on his record anyway. So she definitely had some good options there.
Okay, Marche, I'd
should
like to go ahead and we can do some questions as I look for one more slide. Here we go. Okay, go for it.
All right, I got a little rapid fire question list here then. The first one says Social Security benefit is based on your income. Is there a cap on the benefit? And if so, what is the salary at this cap?
Well, there's a cap because you stop paying Social Security tax at a certain point. This year it's $142,800. So that there's always been a cap every year. And if someone had high earnings and exceeded those caps, they stopped paying. Let's just say this year they earned $200,000. When Social Security computes their benefit, they're going to count that as $142,800. Now, keep that in mind. They use your high 35 years of earnings. They will adjust your prior year wages for inflation to bring them up to today's dollars. And then starting with age 60, they just use your actual wage. but it is based on your actual wage, capped at the whatever the maximum was for that year.
Perfect. All right, then we got a second question here, which I'll actually answer as the financial planner in the group. Someone's asking if are we counting the cost of money? In other words, if we don't need the money that we get from Social Security and we just take it and invest it in the stock market, how does that plan in? And quite frankly, that's a question we can't answer in this conversation today because that's a very unique, specific situation to you, your investments, your overall financial picture. So great question, but not one we can answer on this today. So I highly recommend talking to a financial planner about that. And I'll skip on to the next question here. Here's a question.
Lars, I'll just chip into that and say, I get that question all the time, and that's why it's important. And I refer people to their financial advisor as well, because it is a good question and something you want to think about, but it's a little more complicated than we.
Yes, for sure. Then there was a question that says, do annuities from a 401k count as earnings towards the earnings tax?
Well, the earnings test, no. So if you're under full retirement age and you have a pension from work, or you're drawing from your 401ks, that doesn't count towards that $18,960. It's only wages where you work for someone and receive a W-2 form, or if you're self-employed, it would be your net profit.
Okay, and just in case the question could be read a couple of different ways, does it count towards taxable taxes on the Social Security amount?
Well, right, they pretty much, it doesn't count everything, but just about everything counts, plus half of your Social Security to get you to those limits. Your best bet in that situation is to run a tax return. Either if you do your own taxes, use your tax software. If you have a CPA, just say, hey, look, I'm thinking about Social Security. This is how much I would get. What would my tax liability end up being?
Perfect. And then we got a surviving spouse question. You sort of covered in some of the previous examples, but let me just ask the specific question. It says, a surviving spouse was a higher earner and is currently 57. Is there any reason to claim spousal benefit? Husband passed recently at age 66.
Well, you can't draw a widow's or widower's benefit until age 60, unless you're disabled. Then you could draw it as early as age 50. But for most folks, if they're not disabled, age 60 is the earliest. You're still subject to the earnings test. So you would want to look at, is age 60 a good time to draw or not, or do you need to wait? But also, what's your own work history look like? And we're going to look at those two together. Do I take the survivor first and my own later, or do I take my own, say, early at 62 and take the survivor at full retirement age? But it's something that we would have to look at.
I'm going to have to end our question and answer period there. Mark, I know you want, there's much more to give. Mark and Jim and also Gail, I know she had to leave, but thank you so much. Mark, you wanted to say a little bit about your services.
Thanks, Marcia. Yes. So we do a couple of things, Jim and I. We provide consultations for folks looking to get some answers as to what their Social Security claiming strategies are. And our fee to do that is $545. And unfortunately, I forgot to give you my email address or phone number, so I'll just do that verbally. Of course, you can always reach out to Advice Chaser. But my email address is mkiner, Kiner, at mypremierplan.com. That's mkiner at mypremierplan.com. And email phone number 513-218-8505. 513-218-8505. Marche, thanks so much for having us on today. And Lars, thank you for your excellent moderator abilities.
And I do have
Pleasure.
a couple
Great.
words to say before we end. Once again, on behalf of Advice Chaser, thank you so much to our speakers, the organizations that have worked with us to bring you this webinar today. Look for an email soon with a link to the replay of this event, and you're welcome to share that replay with family and friends. Here at Advice Chaser, we're all about helping you find a financial advisor who's a great fit for your life and your financial questions. Our matching service is free to you, and every one of our advisor partners has committed to offer a free initial consultation to anyone we introduce them to. Find out more by going to advicechaser.com and clicking on the link to find an advisor. Once again, from Advice Chaser, thank you so much for coming. We will see you at another webinar soon. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.